The night was cold. The ruins of the alien colony lay silent, broken walls leaning against each other like tired giants. Metal scraps glistened under the faint light of 2 moons. The wind howled through shattered towers, carrying the cries of the forgotten Dot hidden under a pile of burned cloth and broken wood. A young alien girl pressed her arms tightly around herself. Her skin, once bright with healthy patterns, now looked pale and weak. She had no family left, no place to go. Every step she had taken ended with rejection. The colony had fallen weeks ago. Raiders and scavengers had taken what they wanted, and the rest children like her were left to starve. She had survived by drinking dirty water and chewing on dry roots. But now, even her strength was leaving her. Her eyes closed for a moment, her body trembling from hunger. Maybe this was the end then. She heard footsteps. Her eyes shot open. Heavy boots crushed the dust, moving closer. She hid deeper in the shadows, her heart pounding. Was it another raider? Another scavenger who would laugh at her? Or worse, take her to sell? She held her breath, her sharp ears twitching at every step. Through the broken wall she saw him. A human, tall, covered. In a torn jacket, his face hidden under the shadow of his helmet. He carried a bag filled with tools, ropes, and bits of metal. His eyes scanned the wreckage, not with greed, but with focus. He was searching for something. The girl shivered. She had heard stories about humans. Some said they were merciless predators, who only cared about themselves. Others whispered that humans were clever builders who could turn ruins into homes. She didn't know which was true. All she knew was this: if he saw her, her life might end tonight. The human stopped. His eyes turned toward the corner where she hid. For a long moment, silence ruled the night. Then, in a calm voice, he said, "I know you're there." The girl froze. "I'm not here to hurt you," the human continued, his voice steady. "If you want to stay hidden, stay hidden. But if you step out, maybe I can help." The girl wanted to laugh. Help? No one had ever helped her? Not even her own people? She pressed her back against the cold wall, whispering to herself, "Don't trust him. Don't move." But her body betrayed her. The cold air bit at her skin, and her empty stomach twisted in pain. Slowly, against her will, she peeked out. The human stood still. His hands were open, showing no weapon. His eyes, though tired, carried no cruelty. "You'll freeze out here," he said softly. "Come closer to the fire." Only then did she notice that he had lit a small fire using broken wood and metal scraps. The warmth flickered in the dark, promising safety. Her legs shook as she stepped forward. The distance between them felt endless. She stopped a few feet away, her eyes still. Sharp with suspicion, the human studied her. She was thin, too thin. Her clothes were torn, her hair tangled with dust. She looked like a dying ember in a storm. "What's your name?" he asked. The girl stayed silent. He nodded, as if he expected that. "No matter. Sit. Rest. You don't have to talk." She hesitated, then lowered herself onto the broken stone near the fire. The warmth wrapped around her, chasing away the cold, and for the first time in many nights, her body relaxed, but her heart did not. She kept her eyes on him, ready to run if he made a sudden move. The human pulled something from his bag, a piece of metal, a bent panel. He set it on the ground and began working with his tools. Sparks flew as he hammered and cut. The girl tilted her head. What was he doing? He noticed her stare. "Building," he said simply. "This place, it's too open, too dangerous. Need walls, a roof, a home." Her lips parted in shock. "A home. For her you don't know me?" she whispered for the first time. Her voice was weak, almost lost to the wind. The human stopped, looking at her with steady eyes. "I don't need to know you. I can see you're alone, and I don't leave people to die." Something strange stirred inside her chest. She had never heard words like that before. Not from her own kind. Not from anyone. The fire crackled. The human kept building, shaping the scraps into a frame. The girl hugged her knees, torn between fear and curiosity. Who was this man? Why was he helping her? What would he ask for in return? The night stretched on. Every strike of his hammer echoed through the ruins. With every strike, the girl felt a spark of hope. Small, fragile, but alive. She closed her eyes, whispering to herself, "Don't trust him. Don't trust anyone." But deep down, another voice answered, "Maybe. Just maybe, this human is different." And so the homeless stranger, who had lost everything, sat in silence as a man of scrap began to build not just walls, but the beginning of something far greater. The next morning arrived slowly. Pale sunlight broke through the clouds, painting the ruins in shades of gray. The alien girl blinked awake, feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time: warmth. The fire had burned low, but it had kept her alive through the night. She turned her head and saw the human already awake, busy with his tools. He was working on something. Long pieces of metal, broken panels, and wires lay spread out before him. His hands moved with steady rhythm, cutting, hammering, bending. The girl frowned. Why was he wasting time here? Scavengers usually took what they needed and left. She pulled her knees to her chest and asked, "What are you doing?" The human glanced at her, his eyes calm. "Building you a shelter. You can't. Stay out in the open. Too cold. Too dangerous." Her chest tightened. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Building for me, she thought, sounded like a dream. Still, her suspicion was strong. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you build anything for me? You don't even know me." The human paused for a moment, wiping dust from his hands. "I don't need to know you. I can see you're alone. It's enough." His words were simple, but they struck deep inside her heart. She looked away quickly, not wanting him to see the tears in her eyes. By midday, the human had finished. Shaping a basic frame from scrap metal, he lifted a bent steel sheet and set it upright, creating the first wall. Then another. Slowly, something began to rise among the ruins, not grand, not pretty, but strong enough to block the biting wind. The girl couldn't stop watching. She had never seen such patience. Her people had left her without a second glance, but this. The stranger was sweating and straining, all for her. At one point, he stopped to catch his breath. His face was covered in dirt, his hands scratched. She surprised herself by stepping forward. "Here," she said softly, picking up a small piece of metal and holding it out. He raised an eyebrow, but accepted it with a small nod. "Thank you." It was the first time she felt useful again. As the sun lowered, the shelter began to take shape. It wasn't large, only enough for two people to sit or lie down inside. But when the last piece was placed on top, forming a crude roof, the girl gasped. It was real. It was hers. The human sat back, tired but satisfied. "It's not much," he said, "but it will keep you warm tonight." The girl stepped closer. Touching the wall, it was rough, cold metal, yet to her it felt like the softest blanket. She whispered, "No one has ever." The human's expression didn't change, but his eyes softened. "Now someone has." 4. A long moment, silence hung between them. The girl's chest filled with emotion she couldn't name: relief, gratitude, fear, and something warmer, something dangerous. That night they sat inside the shelter. The wind howled outside, but the walls held. The girl hugged herself, amazed. At the safety around her, the human broke a piece of his ration bar in half and handed it to her. "Eat." She hesitated again. Memories of poisoned food and cruel tricks rushed back. But his eyes were steady, and her stomach screamed with hunger. Slowly, she accepted it. The taste was dry, plain, but to her, it was a feast. She ate in silence. But inside her heart, questions spun. Why is he helping me? What does he want? Is this a trick? She finally whispered, "What do you want from me?" The human looked at her with quiet surprise. "Nothing," he said simply. "Just don't give up on yourself." Her throat tightened. She wanted to speak, but no words came. She turned her face away, hiding the tears that fell quietly down her cheeks. Later, when the fire burned low, she lay curled up in a corner of the shelter. The human sat near the entrance, keeping watch. She listened to the sound of the wind outside, the steady crackle of the fire, and the quiet rhythm of his breathing. For the first time since her world had collapsed, she felt safe enough to close her eyes without fear. And yet sleep did not come easily. Questions haunted her dreams. Who was this human? Why was he different from the others? Could she truly trust him more? Was trust just another trap waiting to break her heart again? As the night deepened, she whispered one last thought to herself. If he leaves tomorrow, I will be alone again. But if he stays, maybe my life will change forever. The shelter stood firm against the night, a fragile creation of scrap and hope. Inside, two strangers sat separated by silence but united by something neither of them yet understood. Morning light filtered through the cracks of the scrap shelter. The alien girl woke slowly, her body stiff but warmer than she had been in weeks. For a brief moment, she felt safe. But then the memories returned. Her empty village, her family, gone. And now, this strange human who had built her a shelter from nothing. She turned her head. The human was outside already, sorting through piles of wreckage. His figure moved calmly, steady as always, carrying pieces of metal and broken wires back toward their small home. The girl's stomach growled loudly. She pressed her arms around, herself ashamed. It had been days since she had eaten a proper meal. The small piece of ration the human gave her last night had only woken her hunger even more. She whispered under her breath, "Don't ask him, don't beg, he'll think you're weak." But weakness betrayed her body again. Her hands trembled, and her mouth felt dry. The human returned, carrying a bundle of wood and a piece of metal shaped like a bowl. He placed the wood down and lit another fire. Then he took out something from his pack, a small packet of dried food and a container of water. He poured the water into the metal bowl, dropped the dried pieces in, and set it over the fire. But soon steam rose, carrying a smell the girl had not known in a long time. Real food. Her eyes widened. The scent wrapped around her, making her stomach twist painfully. She bit her lip, trying to look away, but her eyes betrayed her, following every move of his hands. The human noticed the food slowly, then said, "You're hungry?" What? The girl's face burned with shame. "I'm fine," she whispered. But her stomach growled again, loudly this time. The human said nothing. He lifted the bowl and placed it gently in front of her. "Eat." She stared at it. The steam rose, carrying warmth and comfort, but her mind screamed with warnings. What if it was poisoned? What if it was a trick? She had seen others fooled before offered food, only to be captured and sold. Her hands clenched tightly. "Why?" she asked sharply. "Why are you giving this to me?" Human looked at her, calm and steady as ever. "Because you need it." The answer was too simple, too direct. It made her doubt even more. She searched his face for signs of lies, but his eyes did not flinch. Finally, she reached forward. Her fingers shook as she lifted the bowl. Slowly, carefully, she took a sip. The taste hit her tongue, warm, salty, real. Tears burned her eyes as she swallowed. It wasn't poisoned. It wasn't a trick. It was just food. She ate slowly at first, but hunger soon broke her restraint. She finished the bowl quickly, licking the edges. Shame returned to her face, and she lowered the bowl. The human gave her another small portion without a word. She hesitated, then whispered, "What do you want from me?" The human raised an eyebrow. "Want?" "Yes," she said quickly. Her voice cracked, half anger, half fear. Everyone who gives something, they want something back. Food, shelter, protection, nothing is free. The human was silent for a moment. Then he said, "I don't want anything. I just don't leave people to starve." Her chest tightened. She didn't know what to say. No one had ever spoken to her like that. The rest of the day passed quietly. The human worked on reinforcing the shelter, adding stronger panels and tying them with rope. The girl watched from the corner, still suspicious, still full of questions. At one point, she stepped outside and picked up a small piece of scrap. She handed it to him without speaking. He accepted it with a nod. "Thank you." The words felt strange but warm to her ears. She had not heard gratitude in so long. That night, as they sat by the fire inside the shelter, the girl could not hold her thoughts anymore. "You are strange," she said suddenly. The human glanced at her. "How so? You don't act like the others. You don't steal. You don't laugh at me. You build and you share. I don't understand." The human smiled faintly. "Maybe it's simple. I build because I can. I share because I don't want to see you suffer. You don't have to understand right now. Just rest." The girl frowned, confused and restless. She wanted to trust him, but fear held her heart like chains as the fire burned low. She whispered to herself, "If I trust him and he leaves, I'll break." Her eyes closed slowly, tears slipping down her cheeks. The human, still awake, glanced at her fragile form curled in the corner. His jaw tightened. Quietly, he whispered words she could not hear. "You've been through enough. I won't let the world break you again." Outside, the ruins groaned under the wind. Inside, hunger was eased, but doubt still lingered. The girl was no longer dying of cold, but her heart remained locked in fear. And yet, somewhere deep inside, a seed of trust had been planted, small, fragile, but alive. The days slowly began to change. When the alien girl had first met the human, she believed he would abandon her at any moment. But he didn't. Every morning, he woke with the rising sun and went into the ruins to collect more scraps, metal sheets, broken panels, wires, and shattered glass. By the time he returned, his arms were full and his face was covered in dust. At first, the girl only watched from inside the shelter. She stayed quiet, hugging her knees, never daring to move closer. But one morning, as he struggled with a large metal beam, she felt something stir inside her without a word. She walked out and placed her small hands under the other end of the beam. The human glanced at her, surprised, but said nothing. Together, they dragged it back to the shelter. It was the first time she had worked beside someone since her family was gone. The human began to teach her small things. How to hold the rope tight while he tied the knots, how to find strong pieces of metal and avoid the ones that were weak or rusted, how to use a broken panel to reflect light into the darker corners. Her hands blistered. Her arms shook from the effort. But each time she dropped something, the human didn't scold her. He only said, "Try again." The words felt strange. Her people had always called her weak, a burden, useless. But this human never once used those words. He only showed her how to stand up again. One afternoon, as they worked under the fading light, she asked softly, "Why do you build so much?" The human hammered a panel into place before answering. "Because walls give safety. A roof gives peace. Without them, you're only surviving. With them, maybe you can start living again." The girl stared at him. "Living again," she repeated. The words felt heavy, almost impossible. He looked at her with steady eyes. "You deserve that much." Her heart beat faster. She quickly turned away, pretending to search for more scrap, afraid he would see the emotion on her face. Within days, their small shelter had grown larger. The human had built 2 separate spaces, one for sleeping and one for sitting near the fire. He used broken glass from old windows to let in sunlight and wires to hang up tools. The girl marveled at it. Every new addition made the shelter feel less like ruins and more like a home. For the first time in her life, she felt ownership of something. This wasn't just a place to hide, it was hers. But happiness did not erase fear. At night, when the fire burned low, she often woke from nightmares. In her dreams, raiders returned, laughing as they tore down the walls, dragging her away while the human stood helpless. She would wake in a sweat, gasping, clutching at her chest. Each time she found the human awake, sitting near the door, keeping watch with quiet patience. He never asked about her nightmares. He simply nodded as if to say, "You're safe. Go back to sleep." And somehow she did. But the ruins were not empty. One evening, as the human and the girl worked together to set a large piece of steel upright, the girl's ears twitched. She froze, her eyes narrowing. "What is it?" the human asked. She pointed toward the far side of the ruins. The faint sound of laughter carried on the wind. The human stiffened. He recognized it instantly, the rough, cruel laughter of scavengers. Quickly, he signaled for her to stay quiet. They crouched behind the shelter wall, peering through a crack in the distance. 3 figures moved among the wreckage, carrying bags and crude weapons. Their voices echoed as they searched for anything valuable. "Scrap is good," one of them said, "but a living one is worth more. Heard there's still runts hiding here. Easy to catch, easy to sell." The girl's blood ran cold. She pressed her back against the wall, shaking. She had heard those voices before. Once, she had escaped them by luck. If they found her now, there would be no escape. The human's eyes hardened. He whispered, "Stay inside. Don't make a sound." She grabbed his arm, panic in her voice. "They'll take me. They'll take me away." He met her gaze, calm but firm. "Not while I'm here." They stayed hidden until the voices drifted away. Only when silence returned did the human relax his shoulders. But the girl could not stop trembling. That night, she sat near the fire, hugging herself. Her voice was low and broken. "They'll come back. They always come back. They won't stop until they find me." The human fed more wood into the flames, the firelight casting shadows across his face. "Then we'll make this place stronger. Higher walls. A roof they can't break. If they try, they'll regret it." She looked at him, unsure if his words were promise or madness. But the certainty in his eyes gave her something she had not felt in a long time: courage. The next morning, they worked harder than ever. The human taught her how to sharpen broken pipes into weapons. He reinforced the shelter walls with heavy beams. The girl, though small, helped wherever she could, tie in ropes, carrying wood, even climbing on top to hold pieces steady as the sun set. Their hands were blistered, their bodies tired, but the shelter stood taller, stronger, almost like a fortress of scraps. The girl sat back, breathing hard, looking at their creation. For the first time in many moons, she felt not just protected but powerful. She whispered, almost to herself, "This is not just scrap anymore. This is hope." The human gave a small smile. "Exactly." But even as the walls grew stronger, danger still lurked. Somewhere out in the ruins, the scavengers were waiting, watching, planning their return. The girl did not know when they would come. But she knew one thing. She was no longer facing the world alone, and that truth, fragile but real, gave her the strength to face whatever came next. The wind carried a strange silence that evening. The alien girl felt at first the stillness, the way the birds stopped calling, the way dust seemed to settle in the air. She was gathering small pieces of wood near the shelter when her ears twitched. Footsteps, not the heavy, steady ones of the human. These were uneven, dragging many at once. She froze, her eyes darting to the shadows among the ruins. Shapes moved there. Her chest tightened. "They've come back." She ran toward the shelter, her voice a broken whisper. "They're here." The human was already standing at the entrance, his hand gripping a long pipe he had sharpened into a weapon. His jaw was tight, but his eyes calm. He had been expecting this. "Inside," he said firmly. The girl hesitated. She wanted to obey, but her legs trembled with fear. She remembered the laughter she had heard days ago, the cruel voices promising to sell her. Her body shook, but she forced herself into the shelter. She crouched near the fire, hugging her knees, every sound outside stabbing into her heart. The scavengers appeared soon after. 3 of them, just as before, but now bolder. They carried blades made of jagged scrap, their eyes shining with greed. Well, one of them sneered, his voice carrying across the ruins. "What do we have here? Little hut in the middle of nowhere? Someone's been busy?" Another laughed harshly. "I can smell it. Someone's inside. Someone alive." The third licked his lips. "Told you. Easy prey. A girl, maybe. Worth more than a pile of metal?" The girl's stomach twisted in terror. She buried her face in her arms, whispering, "Don't take me, don't. Take me outside." The human stepped forward, pipe in hand. He positioned himself in front of the shelter, like a wall of flesh and steel. His voice was steady, cutting through the evening air. "Leave. There's nothing here for you. The scavengers laughed. Nothing. The leader sneered. You built this whole place, and you expect us to believe there's nothing inside? Move aside, human. Hand over the girl, and maybe we let you walk away. The human tightened his grip on the pipe. She's not yours to take. The laughter stopped. The leader's face twisted with anger. Then you've just made your last mistake, they attacked. The first scavenger rushed forward, swinging his jagged blade. The human blocked with his pipe, the clash ringing out like a bell. Sparks flew. The human twisted, using his strength to shove the attacker back. The second scavenger tried to flank him, but the human was faster. He swung the pipe low, smashing it against the man's leg. A crack echoed, followed by a scream. The girl peeked. Through a crack in the wall, her heart racing. She had never seen anyone fight like this. The human moved not with cruelty, but with purpose, every strike measured, every step controlled. But the scavengers were ruthless. The leader pulled a chain from his belt and swung it, wrapping it around the human's arm. The sharp metal cut into his skin, blood dripped down his sleeve. The girl gasped. Fear clawed at her chest. He'll lose. They'll kill him. They'll take me. Her hand shook as she gripped a broken piece of wood from the floor. For the first time, she wanted to fight not for herself, but for him. The human gritted his teeth, yanking against the chain. He lunged forward, slamming his shoulder into the leader's chest. The man stumbled back, gasping, but did not fall. Other scavenger, still limping from his broken leg, threw a rock at the human. It struck his head, making him stagger. The girl couldn't stay hidden anymore. She burst out of the shelter, her voice sharp with desperation. Stop! Leave him alone. The scavenger's eyes turned to her. Their greedy smiles returned. She is, one of them hissed. The little prize. The girl's heart pounded. She raised the broken wood like a weapon, though her arms shook. She knew she couldn't fight them. She couldn't run either. The human, blood running down. His temple stood in front of her again. His voice was firm, even through pain. You'll have to go through me, the leader snarled. Then so be it. Chain swinging. The human met him head-on, pipe clashing against metal. They wrestled, sparks flying as steel ground. Against steel? The scavenger pushed with brute force, but the human used his weight, twisting the chain and pulling the man off balance. With a roar, the human drove the pipe into the leader's stomach. The man collapsed, gasping, clutching his wound. The other two froze, fear flashing in their eyes. They had thought the human an easy kill, just another scavenger. But this was no scavenger. This was a fighter. One of them cursed and dragged the leader back. We'll be back, he spat. And when we come, we'll burn this place down. The three fled into the ruins, their shouts echoing into the night. Silence returned. The wind carried only the crackle of the fire. The girl dropped the broken wood from her hands, her legs giving way. She fell to her knees, trembling. The human stood over her, breathing heavily, blood dripping from his arm and head. He looked down at her, his expression steady but tired. Are you hurt? He asked softly. She shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. You didn't leave me. Of course not, he said. She pressed her forehead against the ground, sobbing. No one had ever chosen her before. No one had ever stood between her and danger. Till now, the human crouched, lifting her gently. It's over, for now. Deep inside, both of them knew the truth. The scavengers would return. The real fight was only beginning, and in that moment, a fragile bond between human and alien became something unbreakable, something worth defending with blood. The fire crackled low inside the shelter. Outside, the ruins were silent again, but the silence was not comforting. It was heavy. Filled with the memory of the fight, the alien girl sat trembling near the corner. Her eyes never left the human, who sat across from her, his body leaning forward, blood dripping from his arm and temple. His breathing was slow, controlled, but the wounds were deep. She whispered almost too softly to hear. You're hurt. The human glanced at her, then at his wounds. It's nothing, he muttered. But it wasn't nothing. The chain had cut deep into his arm, leaving angry red lines. The rock that struck his head had left blood running down his face. His jacket was torn, his hands bruised. The girl's chest tightened. For days she had doubted him, questioned his kindness, suspected his every action. But now, as she looked at the blood he had spilled for her, doubt melted away. Replaced by something raw and powerful, she crawled closer, her hands shaking. Let me help." The human frowned. "You don't have to." "I want to," she insisted, her voice breaking. "You fought for me. If I do nothing, I am useless again." Her words carried a pain. He recognized the pain of someone abandoned too many times, someone made to believe they had no worth. Slowly, he nodded. "All right." She tore strips from her own worn clothes, dipping them into water. Carefully, she pressed them against his arm, cleaning the wound. He flinched, but didn't pull away. Her eyes watered as she worked. "Why? Why do this for me? They could have killed you. Why not let me go?" The human looked at her, his expression calm but firm. "Because you don't deserve to be taken. You don't deserve to be sold or left to die. No one does." Her hand shook harder. No one had ever said those words to her. No one had ever told her she deserved life, safety, or anything at all. She bit her lip, fighting tears, but they spilled down her cheeks anyway, as she wrapped his wounds. She whispered, "I was nothing before you came. Just another mouth no one wanted to feed. My people abandoned me. Strangers laughed at me, even I believed. Maybe they were right." Her voice cracked. "But then you built me a home out of scrap. You gave me food. You stood in front of blades and chains. You bled for me. How can I still believe I am nothing?" The human said nothing at first. His steady eyes stayed on hers until she dropped her gaze. Then he spoke quietly. "You were never nothing. The world lied to you. Don't believe it anymore." Her breath caught. She pressed the last cloth against his head wound, her tears dripping onto his skin. Later, as the fire dimmed, she sat beside him. Instead of hiding in the corner, her body leaned slightly toward his, as if drawn by a force she didn't understand. She whispered, "I thought trust was a trick. I thought kindness was a trap. But you showed me something different." Human leaned back against the wall, exhaustion heavy in his face. "Trust isn't easy," he said. "Sometimes it's the only way to survive." The girl's fingers tightened on the cloth in her hands. She looked at the walls around them, the shelter they had built together, patched and reinforced. For the first time, she didn't see it as just metal and scrap. She saw it as proof of something real. The next day, despite his injuries, the human returned to work. He refused to sit idle. With slow, steady movements, he lifted beams, hammered panels, and adjusted the roof. The girl stayed close, helping more than ever before. She no longer hesitated. She carried tools, tied ropes, even held wood steady while he nailed it down. Each action filled her with a strange pride. When he stumbled from pain, she caught his arm. "Rest," she urged. He gave a small smile. "You sound like me?" Her cheeks warmed. "Then maybe I'm learning." Together, they worked until the shelter looked less like a hiding place and more like a small home, stronger walls. It's a thicker roof, even a raised edge around the fire pit to keep sparks inside. That evening, as they sat inside, the girl looked at the glowing flames and whispered, "This place feels alive." The human nodded, "Because we built it together." Her heart swelled at the word together. She repeated it softly to herself, as if tasting it for the first time. Together, but their peace could not last forever. As night fell, the girl's sharp ears caught distant laughter again. The scavengers. They had not given up. Fear clawed at her chest, but this time it was not the same crushing despair. She turned to the human, her voice steady despite the tremble in her body. "They'll come again," she said, stronger, angrier. The human nodded slowly. "Yes, and when they do, we'll be ready." She stared at him, searching his face. "We together," he repeated. The girl closed her eyes. tears slipping free not of fear, but of something new: trust, hope, belonging. She leaned her head gently against his shoulder, whispering, "Then I will not be afraid. Not anymore." Outside, the ruins groaned under the weight of the wind. Inside, a broken child and a wounded man sat close to the fire. Two strangers, once alone, had forged something stronger than fear-trust born in blood and fire, and soon that trust would be tested. Again, the ruins had changed. Where once there were only broken walls and scattered metal, now stood a shelter that looked alive. It wasn't beautiful in the way cities once were, but it was strong. Tall walls of welded scrap guarded the entrance, patched with wires and beams. The roof, once just a sheet, now had layers to keep out the rain. Inside, the fire burned in a safe pit, its light warming the space like a heartbeat. The alien girl stood at the doorway, her hands brushing against the cold steel. For so long she had wandered with nothing: no food, no family, no hope. Now, here in the middle of ruins, she had something she never thought she would have again: a home. Behind her, the human placed down a final piece of wood, reinforcing the frame. His movements were slow, careful, his wounds still healing, but his eyes carried quiet satisfaction. "It's finished," he said. The girl turned to him. "Finished." He nodded. Homes are never truly finished. They grow as the people inside them grow. She tilted her head, her ears twitching. The words felt strange but comforting. She looked around again, realizing he was right. The shelter wasn't just metal and scrap. It was a story: every wall built from struggle, every beam shaped by trust. That night, they sat together by the fire. The girl held a small bowl of food in her hands. She ate slowly, savoring each bite. Remembering the days when she had starved in silence, her eyes moved to the human, sitting across from her. His face was scarred now, marked by the fight. But his presence was steady as ever. She whispered, "I used to think I would die alone." The human glanced at her, waiting. "But you..." Her voice cracked. "You changed that." He gave a small smile. "Sometimes life changes when you least expect it." The girl lowered her eyes, tears gathering. She wanted to say more, but words felt too small for the weight in her chest. The days that followed were different. In the morning, the girl no longer hid inside while he worked. She walked beside him through the ruins, searching for useful scraps. Her sharp ears helped them find things hidden under rubble, her small hands slipping into spaces his could not reach. When they returned, they built together. She no longer feared failure. If she dropped a tool, she picked it up again. If she tied a rope wrong, he showed her patiently, and she tried again. Slowly, her hands grew stronger, her steps steadier. The girl began to laugh, sometimes soft, uncertain at first, then brighter. The human never laughed loudly, but his quiet chuckles became more frequent, as if her joy had unlocked something inside him too, but the shadow of danger never fully left at night. She still heard distant voices, the scavengers searching the ruins, plotting their return. Fear still whispered in her heart. But whenever it grew too strong, she looked at the human sitting near the doorway, pipe resting by his side, watchful and unyielding. Her fear never fully disappeared, but it no longer ruled her. One night, as the wind howled outside, she whispered, "If they come again, what if they are too many?" The human's gaze stayed on the fire. "Then we fight. If we can't win, we run, but we never give up." She looked at him, her chest tight. "You always say we, because it's true," he said. Her throat tightened. She lowered her head, whispering, "Thank you for making me part of we." The next morning, the girl stood outside, looking at the sky. The two moons hung pale against the dawn, casting silver light on the broken land. She breathed deeply, feeling the cool air fill her lungs. For the first time since she could remember, she didn't feel like a burden. She didn't feel like a useless stray. She felt alive. The human came to stand beside her. He said nothing at first, only followed her gaze. Then, after a moment, he said, "You're stronger now." She blinked. "Stronger?" He nodded. "Because of me. because you chose to stand. You chose to fight. That strength is yours." Her eyes stung with tears. She turned quickly, not wanting him to see, but he already had. He didn't tease her. He didn't laugh. He simply nodded again, as if to say it's all right. Later, as the sun set, the girl sat by the doorway of their shelter. She traced her fingers along the metal wall, whispering softly, "This is my home." The human looked up from his work. "No," she corrected herself, her voice stronger now. "This is our home." The human's lips curved into the faintest smile. That night, she couldn't sleep. She lay awake, staring at the roof, listening to the fire crackle. Finally, she sat up and whispered into the darkness, "I was nothing before you came. But now I have a place. I have a family." Her voice trembled. "You built me a home with your hands, but more than that, you gave me a reason to keep living." The human stirred slightly, opening one tired eye. He didn't answer with words. Instead, he simply reached out, resting a steady hand on her shoulder. That touch said more than words ever could, and so, in the ruins of a dead colony, where once there was only despair, a new beginning took root. A broken girl and a weary man, bound not by blood but by choice, had forged something stronger than steel. Together, they had built more than a shelter. They had built a home.